DreAllDay.com.
Dre Baldwin, DreAllDay.com. Let me tell you what success is. I don't care what you do for a living, who you are, where you're from, what your situation is up to this point. Success is the same for everybody. It is a set of consistent disciplines applied over an extended period of time. Consistent disciplines applied over an extended period of time. That's all success is. Anybody you can name who has had consistent success, extended success, that is exactly what they did. Whether you're talking some athlete, a business person, a lawyer, a person who's just stayed in good physical shape, a company, they all do the same thing. They have a set of disciplines, principles that drive their disciplines, that govern their disciplines, and they follow them consistently, and they do it over a long period of time, and that's why they're successful. That is how you create success. So everybody who is listening to my voice right now, here's what you need to do with this information. First of all, you need to figure out what your principles are. The principles are the overarching beliefs and like the tenets. They're like the foundation of what you're about, and what you all are already about or what you want to be about. You need to decide what those principles are. Because see, principles don't change often. You don't change your principles like every other week. The principles say what you're about in general. The strategies come after the principles. I'll probably do a whole video just on this. The strategies are just the big picture mission that you want to achieve, and the tactics are the moment by moment little things that you do in order to get stuff done. Those are the things that change all the time. But it goes in that order. Everybody follow? So you gotta decide what your principles are. Then once you're clear on your principles, then you come up with a set of disciplines that are governed by the principles. So the principles tell you what your disciplines are going to be. So for example, and then once you figure out what your disciplines are, I'll give you an example in a second. Figure out what your disciplines are, then you just apply those disciplines all the time, and then you get results. And I wrote a book called The Third Day to help you apply disciplines all the time, because some of you may say, Dre, I get that, but it's hard to apply disciplines all the time. You're right, it is hard. Let me tell you how to fix it by reading my book called The Third Day. The book is free, just cover the shipping, the link is down in the description. Now, the question is, well, Dre, can you give me an example of some principles that govern disciplines? Yes, I can. Let me give you one. If I say my principle is, like I used to play sports, so my background is in basketball. I don't play basketball anymore. Now I run a business, but I still want to be in shape. So one of my principles, not my idea, not a thought, not a suggestion, but a principle of mine personally, I'm not saying you have to have this one, but this is one of mine, is that I will never be out of shape. I'll never be some like fat guy, and I tell you that I used to play basketball, and you looking at me like, damn, you used to play basketball? I can't tell. You don't look like it. I'll never be that guy. I'll never be some fat, out of shape dude who looked like he used to play sports, and you only know I play sports because I told you. I actually will always look like an athlete, even if I'm not an athlete on the court. Like I got on the suit, so I don't look like an athlete in this suit. But if I put on some shorts and a t-shirt, you would say, all right, if I told you I play sports, you would believe it, because my body still looks like an athlete. That's a principle of mine. So how does this principle drive my disciplines? Well, you tell me. How would that principle drive your disciplines? So now I'm teaching you. How would that principle, you have the principle of always being in shape, how does that drive your disciplines? Here are some things that you probably do if you have a principle of always being in shape. You probably go to the gym. You probably have a gym membership. You probably work out on a consistent basis. That's three things. You might have a trainer. You don't need to have a trainer, but you can work out on your own. But you do those things. What else happens when you have the principle of being in shape? You probably pay attention to what you're putting in your body, what you're eating and what you're drinking. Doesn't mean you can't eat or drink something that's not necessarily good, but you got to work that off. So I know if I eat some cake and ice cream, I got to work that off. I got to earn my right to eat cake and ice cream and some fried chicken and collard greens and mac and cheese. I got to earn that by doing the work in the gym. Those are part of my principles. Those are part of my disciplines, that are driven by the principles that I've decided that I'm always going to be in shape. Give you another example. Let's say one of your principles is you always will have money. Let's say that's one of your principles. Like you always got some money in your pocket. Even if you're not rich, you always got some money. You never be down to nothing. What are some disciplines that would drive that principle? One discipline is you're always maybe putting some money aside just to make sure just in case you get into a tight situation, you still have some money that you can pull out. You may be a type of person who is active in investing and liquid investing, the kind of investing that if you get into a tight spot, you can get that money out quickly, so that you always, again, you have access to that money. Maybe you're the type of person that even if you have a full-time job, you always make sure you got some kind of side hustles and stuff going on, so that you always got some extra money, some extra pocket money, some walk around money, just in case, you know, if the full-time job isn't giving you everything that you need financially, you got some walk around money from your side hustles. So you're always doing some other things besides your main thing to make sure you have some money, so that you can adhere to your principle of always having money. So there are disciplines that follow the principles. You get what I'm saying? So you just need to decide what are your principles going to be, and then the disciplines automatically will follow the principles. And then when you follow those disciplines all the time, you'll be living out your principles, and that will become your success. So here's the caveat to everything that I just said, is that you need to make sure that your principles, whatever they are that you choose, you need to make sure that those principles, if followed, will actually lead you to success. So make sure you don't choose the wrong principles. So if you choose a principle, like you can have a principle of being, I'm a street guy, I'm a gangster. All right, so what are the disciplines that drive being a street guy and a gangster? That you got to carry yourself with that kind of energy. You might have to hang around those type of people. You might have to go to certain types of places. Well, is doing that going to lead you to long-term success? You tell me. I can't answer that question, but you can. So you need to make sure that the disciplines that you choose are actually going to lead you to where you want to go. So be wise about the disciplines that you pick. And often, I'll give you a hint here, often our disciplines we get from the adults around us when we grow up. So if you look at the adults around you and they don't have the kind of success that you want, then you need to, and I'm talking about the adults that raised you. So if you don't like the success that they have, then you can still love them as people, but then you need to choose your own principles that are different from theirs, so that you can get the kind of success that you want. And how do you do this? You model what other people are doing. So you see someone who has the kind of success you want, ask yourself, what principles does this person follow? And the good news is principles are not like secrets. So this is not something that you don't have to sign up for somebody's course to know their principles. They usually are talking about it all the time. So think of any successful person who's out there on the internet and they put their stuff out there all the time. They usually talk about their principles all the time. Usually it's something that they say, they mention it probably in everything that they say. They're mentioning their principles because their principles drive everything that they do. So for example, I was watching a YouTube video and I saw an ad for Grant Cardone. Most of y'all know who Grant Cardone is. He's a real estate guy who's always talking about, you know, getting your money right, being right with money, getting out of being broke. And he was in a hard financial spot at one point in his life, and he realized he didn't want to be there anymore, so he dedicated his life to getting his money right and helping other people get their money right. What is one of his principles? He tells you every time he talks. He's always talking about money. That's one of his principles, that your money needs to be right. You don't want to be in a bad spot financially. That's one of his principles. What's one of my principles? Discipline, confidence, mental toughness, personal initiative. Those are my principles. I talk about them every time I talk. I'm talking about at least one of those things every single time I speak. I'm talking about strategies and processes and doing the same things the same way every time. And you listen to any other person who has a brand or a platform, they're usually talking about their principles all the time. Even when they're not trying to talk about them, they're talking about them because they can't help themselves. So you find someone who has the kind of success that you want, then just listen out, pay attention, and they'll tell you what their principles are. You can adopt those principles. Then you need to figure out what disciplines will allow me to live out these principles. You see how all that works? So basically you just reverse engineer everything that I just told you about, and that's how you can decide what your principles are going to be. So hopefully that's useful to all y'all. I'm gonna do a separate video where I talk about principles, strategies, and tactics. And I got a podcast episode on all this stuff, by the way. So these videos that I do here when I'm like driving and stuff, the shorter ones, these are just short versions of what I do on my masterclass. So I put out a masterclass every day. It's called Work on Your Game. You can find it on all the podcasting apps. And on that show, the audio version, I put the videos out too, but the audio comes out way earlier than the video. I talk about this stuff in more depth. So if you want to hear me go deep in this stuff and give you the full game, about 20 or 30 minutes a piece, subscribe to my podcast on Apple or Spotify. Everybody work on your game. Dre, all